Welcome to the final episode of Season 11 of ECCB Connects. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, in collaboration with the Caribbean Economic Research Team, hosted the 51st Monetary Studies Conference over the period 19th to 22nd November at the ECCB headquarters, St. Kitts and Nevis. The theme of the conference was Socioeconomic Transformation in the Caribbean, Policy Implications of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The 34th Adlith Brown Memorial Lecture series was held as part of the conference. Dr. Warren Smith, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, delivered the lecture where he shared his perspectives on how the Caribbean can harness digital transformation to boost socioeconomic development.
Indeed, digital transformation, which is simply another term for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, is forcing a shift in business operations, systems and processes, and expanding the possibilities for improvements in output, productivity, efficiency, and export competitiveness. Our world has begun to embrace the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is moving at unprecedented and unrelenting speed. Its impact is far-reaching, stretching across government, industry, and households. And it is driving tectonic changes in our labor markets, in consumerism, and the general provision of goods and services. A more connected and integrated global market is enabling the transfusion of modern technologies throughout our region. These technologies are turning up in some of the most rural and remote areas, and in the process, helping to level the playing field by removing geographical and other physical barriers to access. Before I examine more closely the promise for rapid and sustainable socioeconomic development being enabled by this digital transformation, let me try to set the stage by reminding us of the current focus of socioeconomic development for our Caribbean. In 2015, our region signed on to the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Our leaders committed to this global blueprint to end poverty, to fight inequality, and to tackle climate change while ensuring that no one is left behind. 17 sustainable development goals were adopted, all to be reached by 2030. Goal number 9 in particular speaks to the role of innovative, sustainable technologies and equal and universal access to information to realize the prosperity envisaged. Basically, world leaders were echoing Nelson Mandela, who said in 2009 at ITU Telecom World in Geneva, and I quote, "Communication technologies have transformed the way people live and the manner in which countries develop. They have the potential to enable us to solve many of the critical problems confronting us. If the potential is to be realized, then we must find ways of turning these technologies into a resource for all people." Nelson Mandela. As we prepare to enter the final decade of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, it is imperative that we in the Caribbean give priority to embracing the technological innovations of the Fourth Industrial Revolution in order to address our most pressing development challenges. Developed countries and leading businesses across the world are already pursuing their transformation agenda and are putting appropriate policies and strategies in place. Our region must similarly take a proactive stance and accelerate the implementation of strategies which can position us to benefit from the opportunities of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In this way, we can safeguard our region's future by enabling everyone to participate fully in this shared prosperity. And finally, to end poverty in all of its forms. In essence, ladies and gentlemen, I see in 2030 a Caribbean that is maximizing the benefits of technology to, one, improve people's well-being by creating greater access to decent jobs through increased investments in education, in innovation, and youth engagement in technology. Two, create a climate-smart region that is powered by renewable energy and is resilient to the impacts of climate change. And three, provide adequate protection for the vulnerable and disadvantaged groups in society. We will know we have reached our destination when we can look back and proudly say, no one is left behind. But before we can devise an appropriate plan to make digital technology an integral part of our development agenda, we need to do some stock taking. So where does the Caribbean stand in this revolution? If I were to choose one word that best describes our region's readiness to capitalize on the use of digital technologies for development, I would have to use the word mixed. On the upside, significant strides have been made over the last 2 decades in 3 components of our digital ecosystem. 1, in infrastructure and technologies, policies and regulation, and human capacity and skills. Information and communication technologies, or ICTs as they are called, are more accessible and affordable than ever. Improvements in ICT infrastructure have resulted from increased market liberalization and competition. And there have been policy and regulatory reforms which facilitated greater market participation by actors in this space. Additionally, much of today's workforce has basic computer literacy, but not enough to usher in an effective, large-scale digital transformation of Caribbean economies. Ongoing investments in ICT infrastructure have contributed to wider geographical access to and overall improvements in ICT services and quality. Network speeds have risen, and several countries have moved from 3G to 4G networks. Falling ICT service costs have improved affordability and contributed to increased adoption and use of the technology. For all, with the exception of Haiti, the cost of both fixed and mobile broadband is below the average cost globally and in the Americas. Many Caribbean countries are close to achieving a global development target of having basic broadband services at less than 2% of monthly gross national income per capita. Penetration rates, particularly for mobile telephone and broadband, have improved appreciably. Excluding Haiti, the share of individuals using the internet in our region rose from 27% to 53% between 2008 and 2016. The average mobile cellular penetration rate is over 110%. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in many countries, mobile subscriptions exceed the population size. Some of us have more than one phone. And in the vast majority of Caribbean countries, more than half of the population has an active mobile internet subscription. On the downside, most of these countries fall into the lower quadrant of beginner stage of digital maturity and lag behind on all foundational elements of the digital economy. In our region, and our region is still light years away from deploying the latest generation networks and infrastructure. Regulatory frameworks are also unevenly developed. The legal frameworks in several countries do not explicitly regulate and protect data on digital platforms, nor do they address cybersecurity or e-commerce adequately. What are some of the prerequisites for digital readiness? So, given our journey to date, where should we now concentrate our efforts in order to realize the possibilities of this fourth industrial revolution, and in turn, to deliver for our people the promise of the Sustainable Development Agenda? If we are to eliminate poverty by 2030, the next 11 years will have to be characterized by economic growth rates that significantly exceed the less than 1% of the past decade. The growth will also have to be underpinned by, one, a greater skew towards higher value-added products, outputs, and sectors that are net foreign exchange earners. And two, a modernized, slimmed-down, efficient, and customer-focused public sector. How do we get to this new economy? I would argue, ladies and gentlemen, that there are at least three prerequisites for making the Caribbean fourth industrial revolution ready and capable of taking full advantage of the opportunities to advance socioeconomic development and prosperity. The first prerequisite is that government policy and regulatory frameworks must foster agility, innovation, and value creation. Rapid changes in technology are requiring policymakers to accelerate implementation of regulatory and legislative reforms and business processes. Speed and flexibility must become defining characteristics of public service delivery. These are prominent features in Estonia, where the internet is recognized as a human right, and the e-government platform allows citizens to access 99% of government services online 24 hours a day. The model from Estonia is built on key elements such as a secure digital identity, e-payments, voting, and access to healthcare. Annual savings through significant time and cost reduction amounts to about 2% of GDP. In other words, there is return on the investment. The regulatory framework must also protect consumers and investors, encourage healthy competition, and guard against data piracy and other cybersecurity risks. Countries like Barbados, interestingly, have opted to create sandboxes to mitigate regulatory uncertainty by providing a controlled environment where companies can test their services under the supervision of the regulator. The second prerequisite is the acquisition of the digital skills and literacy necessary for Caribbean public servants, business professionals, and citizens to thrive in this new era. The average citizen must be able to use technologies for learning, for working, and for participating in society in a responsible, safe, and confidential manner. As such, policymakers will need to prioritize the development of skills, including critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity that are required for 21st century jobs. Without this prioritization, we risk falling behind as the proliferation of artificial intelligence, cloud computing, automation, and other technologies render repetitive, routine, mechanical, and time-consuming tasks redundant. The 2018 Future of Jobs report concluded that by 2022, 48% of industrial activity will be performed by machines, up from the current 29%. On the other hand, a World Bank 2018 study estimated that by 2030, 65% of current primary school students will be engaged in jobs which presently do not exist. 65% of current primary school students will be engaged in jobs which presently do not exist. These findings point to an urgent need for an education strategy focused on training and retraining of the labor force to meet new job market requirements. We need a radical change in our education system. We've been talking about it forever. We must change what, how, and when people learn. The 2019 World Economic Forum predicts that jobs that will be in high demand include data analysts, scientists, artificial and machine learning specialists, big data specialists, innovation professionals, e-commerce and social media experts, and robotics and software engineers. These jobs will generally require an education with a high science, technology, engineering, and mathematics content, STEM as we call it, an area with traditionally low enrollment in the Caribbean. Strategic reforms are required to bring about radical shifts in human resource development and training. Policymakers, educators, and the private sector must forge alliances to secure a match between labor market needs, curriculum development, training, and skills availability. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to my third prerequisite, which is investment in digital infrastructure as a catalyst for accelerated economic growth and job creation. Research conducted by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the International Telecommunication Union found that, 1, a 10% increase in broadband penetration raises per capita GDP by 1 to 1.5 percentage points. And 2, on average, the employment multiplier for broadband investment in directly created jobs was 1.5 and 2.7 for indirectly created and induced new jobs. Research by the Inter-American Development Bank also found that a 10% increase in investment in digital infrastructure, especially telecoms, in Latin America and the Caribbean can lead to a 2 to 3% increase in economic growth and a 2.6% increase in productivity. There appears to be little doubt then that the digital revolution, through its impact on economic growth and new job creation, must take center stage in our quest to achieve the SDGs. Caribbean micro, small, and medium enterprises play a crucial role in economic growth and job creation, accounting for more than 50% of enterprises and over 50% of GDP. These small businesses are a critical medium for taking persons out of poverty and enhancing the opportunities for our most at-risk populations. The concern, though, is that our MSMEs are slow to adopt new technologies and digital platforms. If we can forge a marriage between our MSMEs and technology to create a new class of digital entrepreneurs, we can vastly expand the potential of this group to lower transaction costs, break through geographic barriers, and expand access to new markets and new consumers. For this to manifest itself, policymakers, with the support of their development partners, will have to create a business environment that promotes startup and entrepreneurial cultures, harmonization of legal frameworks and standards, broadening of internet access, and the emergence of an affordable financial and e-payment infrastructure. Digital financial services are not only necessary for digital entrepreneurship and MSME growth, but also present innovative opportunities to improve financial inclusion in the Caribbean. Only 19% of adults in our region have accessed credit from a financial institution or have used a credit card. There's an over-reliance on cash, with 80% of transactions in the East Caribbean Currency Union being cash-based. Check that number for me, Governor. Usage is low even when customers are issued with debit cards, and ranges from 4% in Haiti to 38% in Trinidad and Tobago. Financial technologies, referred to as fintech, have improved access to financial accounts and are driving gains in productivity and investment. In Haiti, however, where 80% of the adult population do not have bank accounts, mobile technologies have improved access to finance and other services by ordinary households. Moncash, a mobile phone-based digital wallet, has been leveraged by households and rural farmers, among others, to increase access to financial services in Haiti. An estimated 14% of the population now own these accounts, and 38% of adults receive or send domestic remittances through their mobile phones. Fintech also has the potential to improve efficiency and reduce the cost of cross-border transfers. Additionally, right here in our Caribbean, the ECCB and the Central Bank of the Bahamas are piloting the Caribbean's first digital currencies. Governor, congratulations. You're showing the way for the rest of us. Before I close, I want to touch briefly on the topic of building resilience. Digital technologies can facilitate and strengthen resilience in areas which are broader than just climate change. These would include economic resilience, access to education and health, infrastructure, environmental and disaster management, and post-disaster recovery. For the Caribbean, early warning and monitoring systems as well as post-disaster recovery are critical. Hence, using the available technologies to adapt and respond to the increasing threats from climate change will be paramount to building resilience. In Jamaica, for example, the government has embarked upon an ambitious program to upgrade its data center and network with a view to improving business continuity and response to natural disasters. In building redundancies and planning for business continuity, digital technologies facilitate backup and security of critical data, transactions, and assets. The application of digital technologies to enable economic resilience is also slowly gaining momentum in the Caribbean. In the agriculture sector, digital ledger technology is being tested to provide greater levels of transparency and to open up new high-value markets to small farmers in the Caribbean. Trinidad and Tobago, for example, is piloting the use of blockchain technology to trace the quality of cocoa to market. With this blockchain technology, a farmer can trace every transaction along the supply chain, from the moment the product leaves the farm until it is purchased. The benefits of this approach are decreased reliance on intermediaries, increased efficiency, reduced waste, and to improve food traceability and safety, which is a big deal in the business of trading in foods. And in Barbados, fish farmers are using 3D printing to make feeding devices and other prototypes. In this instance, technology is enabling the operation to become more sustainable through water and electricity conservation and more compliant with regulation and standards. Additionally, the technology is being used for water quality testing and preparing feeding charts. Fascinating stuff. I have just outlined 3 prerequisites for the Caribbean to participate fully and effectively in the digital revolution and use it to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, there is opportunity. Tim Fargo, author, angel investor, and entrepreneur says, opportunity doesn't make appointments. You have to be ready when it arrives. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if we embrace this opportunity, it can leapfrog our region to the realization of the promised sustainable development and shared prosperity, with no one being left behind. Chair, I thank you.
We now present Did You Know?
Fiscal balance. Did you know a government's fiscal balance is the difference between all revenues and grants and its expenditures during a financial year? If revenues exceed expenditure, it is a fiscal surplus. But if expenditures exceed revenues, then it is a fiscal deficit.
To view any episode of ECCB Connects anytime, any place at your convenience, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn at ECCB Connects.
That's it for this episode and season 11 of ECCB Connects. While we are on break, be sure to stay connected with us via Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We'll be back in January 2020 with new and exciting episodes to share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you. Thanks for watching.